Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Victoria. And welcome to a very fun vlog that I've been working on for a little over a month now. This is actually my first time filming postpartum. So if you're new here, yep, that's a thing. If not, yep, we're kind of back. I'm kind of working on this. Not getting much of a chance for filming, which is a-okay. But I had majority of everything filmed for this vlog and I wanted to get it edited and put up this Friday, but I didn't have an intro. So here we are. So as the title down below says, this is a D&D inspired romance reading vlog. So I found 5 books to read for this vlog. The majority of them are contemporary romances with D&D at the center of them, but I do have one which is a fantasy romance, and that is Tusk Love, which is from Critcal Role and Thea Guanzo. Guanzo? I have her. I should have grabbed the books. Let me grab the books and we'll talk about it. But yeah, so I had 5 books. 4 of them I have physically, and then one of them I had the audiobook of that I picked up. I believe Libro FM was doing a sale. So the first 2 books are written by the same author. These are YA contemporary novels with Dungeons and Dragons involved. The first one I read is Dungeons and Drama, and this is by Christy Boyce. And this revolves around a girl named Riley who ends up, for punishment, working at her dad's comic book store, and her dad has like tabletop gaming and things like that. And she ends up fake dating this guy named Nathan. Fake dating this guy named Nathan because her ex is, you know, a special, and then he likes this girl who's in their D&D group, and so she convinces him that they should do fake dating, and obviously tropes ensue, and in the same time she joins their D&D group as well. So that was the first one. The next one is not even a companion novel, but like in the same vein, and that's Datings and Dragons by Christy Boyce. So in this one, we're following Quinn. She moves to a new town, and she actually ends up joining a D&D group that does like live play. So they stream their games, and she is interested in this guy, Logan, but their group has a strict no dating rule. So it provides conflict, and there's other things going on in there as well. So that is the second YA book. Again, both written by the same author, but not like in the same universe or anything like that. These characters, they don't connect at all, so you can pick up either of them or both of them. The third book that we read for this series is my only adult contemporary novel on this list, and that is Roll for Romance by Lenora Woods. So we have Sadie, who ends up leaving New York after she gets laid off and going to stay with her best friend in a small town outside of Austin, Texas. She ends up her best friend puts together like a noob D&D group. And so she ends up doing that, and she meets the brewer. No, this is Noah. See? We remember things. She ends up meeting Noah, who is part of the group, and yeah, it's a cute little time. So we'll talk about that later, but that is the adult contemporary novel. The one that I have as an audiobook is Roll for Love. This is another YA romance contemporary novel. It follows 2 girls who live in rural Virginia. One moves back after her grandfather dies, and they were like childhood friends, and she's trying to like make new friends for her senior year. And so her neighbor, who she's been friends with since she was a kid, basically she invites her to play D&D with them, and then it's, you know, kind of about all of them in their senior year and all of that good stuff. So this is a YA romance. It's also sapphic, so that was appealing to me, was to get, even though this was a lot of YAs for me, to get a sapphic romance in there. And then finally, as I mentioned, the only book on here that is not a contemporary romance and is actually a fantasy romance is Tusk Love. And the reason that this is on here, even though it doesn't actually have Dungeons and Dragons in it, the game, it is actually based off of a live play from Critcal Role. It was like an inside joke from Campaign 2 that has come to fruition. It's written by Thea Guanzong, and it was just really funny to see how she turned this in to a book. But yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and actually jump into the vlog where I tell you about all these books. Hello. It is September 1st. Happy Labor Day, I guess, to those who celebrated in the past. Sorry, I was playing my phone. And hello, it is September 1st, and we have finished our very first book in this series that I'm doing of romances inspired by Dungeons and Dragons. So this is Dungeons and Drama by Christy Boyce. It's a young adult novel, so we follow Riley and Nathan. Riley's dad owns a comic book shop. Well, yes, comic book shop, but more TTRPG shop, like a gaming shop. And when we first meet Riley, she's basically being forced to work there for 2 months as punishment for taking her mom's car, A, without permission, and B, not having a license and driving it. And our main character, Riley, here is a musical theater kid, so she is super, super passionate about musical theater, and it's basically like consumed her life, and that is what made her make this decision to go ahead and take her mom's car when it probably wasn't the best idea. And so she ends up going to her dad's shop. Now, her parents have been divorced for like 5 years, and from Riley's perspective, she doesn't have a great relationship with her dad. She spends like a weekend or two a month with him, and it seems like they have a hard time connecting. And the shop, in her mind, is the reason that, you know, their family kind of broke up, because when he wanted to do this, he left a tech job to open up this shop, and her mom just didn't agree, and it became like a wedge between them, is from what we were supposed to understand. Nathan also works at the shop, has a great relationship with Riley's dad, and he is very much into gaming and everything like that. And obviously there's Dungeons and Dragons, so he is a part of a D&D group that plays at the store twice a week, and it's got some guys who go to Riley's high school in it. Riley ends up participating in the Dungeons and Dragons game and finds that she likes it, which doesn't surprise me, honestly. Like, a musical theater kid, I feel like would enjoy Dungeons and Dragons. I know that a lot of actors in general, people who enjoy acting, enjoy Dungeons and Dragons because of the role-playing aspects of it. So that did not surprise me whatsoever. But in the midst of this, we get like a fake dating. So Nathan's into this girl, Sophia, who recently joined their D&D group, and she's kind of sucks and just likes to kind of string him along, and he's like obsessed with her. And Riley recently was broken up with by her boyfriend Paul, who is another musical theater kid and has a girlfriend, comes into the shop and basically, just trying to put her down on the way, and she ends up blurting out that she's dating Nathan. And so they come to this agreement that he'll help her with Paul and she'll help him with Sophia, and as I'm sure you can imagine, chaos ensues. This is a fast read. So I started this last night. I finished it today. It's less than 300 pages. It is a YA, so also like just lexicon wise, it's a faster read. But what I found really interesting about this book is I was more interested in Riley's relationship with her dad, and was already kind of, as somebody who enjoys D&D and sees the value that her dad sees in the community that he has there, and kind of the dismissiveness of both Riley and her mom against her dad's dream of doing this. I mean, I think there were other reasons that her parents didn't stick together. It didn't seem like they had a lot in common. And you know, if you just can't understand each other's dreams, that's, what can you do? But a lot of miscommunication between Riley and her dad, and like figuring out how to connect, and this opening up that pathway for her and her dad. Because like her dad, as you get to know him, isn't like a bad guy. Like, it just seems like he had a hard time, they both had a hard time figuring out how to communicate with one another. So I actually enjoyed that aspect of the story a lot more than I cared for like the romance. And I think that just happens to be because I'm older and I'm probably closer in age to what her dad is in this book than I am to Riley and Nathan. And that is totally okay. I still think it was cute. You know, D&D played a part in this book. I wouldn't say it was a backdrop for things. We get like a little bit of D&D here and there, but there's a lot of musical theater references because we are only in Riley's perspective. But I do like the aspect of community and like the idea of like a community game shop, which I feel like you see with some community game shops, but also with like independent bookstores and things like that, like how these places can be more to the community than just a store. So I did like that aspect of this. And you know, we love a little Dungeons and Dragons. So I do have the second one of this one, which I will probably read next because I knew I would fly through these. Like I said, I read this a couple hours tops. Since I have it, I'll probably go ahead and just read the next novel. I will say I do love the designs on these. Like, I think they would make such cute stickers. But like whoever did the covers and just like a little bit of the artwork here, super cute. This one has some like D&D bracelets that are super cute. So this one follows Quinn, and I don't think these don't seem to be related in any way. I'm trying to see. Yeah, no, I don't recognize either of these names. So I don't think either of these characters, it's not like a companion novel. I think you can read these in any order. But this one is Datings and Dragons, and we have Quinn here, who is starting over at a new high school, and she's looking for a D&D game, hoping it'll help her make friends. And she is invited into a group that includes a guy named Logan, and they actually invite her to join their live stream group. But I guess, yeah, no phones, no dating in this live stream group, which, I mean, listen, I definitely playing D&D had a rule about couples in the game, of that, not necessarily like you couldn't, like, listen, shit happens, you fall for people, right? But like bringing in, like if I had someone in my group who started dating somebody, but they weren't like an established relationship, if they had asked if they could play in my game, I would probably say no. Long term. If they wanted to come for like just to hang out, check it out, see if they like D&D, that's fine. But I definitely would not have somebody in my D&D group bring a partner who wasn't like a partner that they were with until we were kind of feeling like they were long term. You know what I mean? Oh, I think I'm gonna give this one 3.25. Like I said, what really intrigued me the most was the relationship that she was building with her dad, and just kind of seeing how that was going to play out. I was rooting for that a little bit more, especially because I think it's also hard, like, these are people in high school, and like, yeah, sure, they could stay together, but most likely, you know, this will be like their first love, and it's so sweet and so wonderful. But like, you know, the dad will hopefully be in her life, her fictional life, for a long, long time. And so I think for me, like, that relationship repair was just a little bit more touching for me. So I enjoyed reading about that. All right, I'll check in with you later. What's up? It's been a couple days. I've been meaning to update this vlog, but I haven't. So here we are now. Pumpkins is excited, right? Are you excited to talk about D&D books? She's excited to eat. Anyway, what have we been up to? So we finished another book on our list of romance books inspired by D&D, or D&D inspired romance books. What have you? I do think I gave you like a little idea of what this book is about before we picked it up, but we are following, I'm so bad with remembering romance main characters' names. I don't know why. So we are following Quinn, that's right. Quinn, who has recently moved into a new town where her grandma lives, and she ends up meeting this group of people who do a live stream of their D&D sessions. And she is instantly attracted to this guy, Logan, who seems to also possibly be interested in her, but they have a strict no dating policy for their group. So they're like trying to not do that, essentially. Especially because Quinn here had a falling out with her D&D group from where she previously lived, and that had to do with some dating drama as well. So she doesn't want to lose this friend group, so she's very freaked out about this. And then in the background we have a little bit of family dynamics. So like I mentioned, she moved into a new town where her grandmother lives, and her grandmother is 75, very active, very fun, and then suddenly starts falling. And that becomes like a side plot here as we follow Quinn and Logan's love story. I actually gave this book 2.5, and I was thinking about this when let me go grab Dungeons and Dramas while we're talking about it. Okay, so I didn't do this for when we first started this video, but I think I'm gonna retroactively add this in for ratings on this, since we're specifically focusing on books inspired by Dungeons and Dragons. And both of these books have Dungeons and Dragons in them. Both have characters who are playing Dungeons and Dragons. We have our female main character here who's never played Dungeons and Dragons and is getting used to it and falling in love with it. And then we have another character who has played it. And so I say we would get, I think we get a little more playtime in this book than we do in this book. I would also say like this book is definitely nerdier than this book. Would we call this the camp rating or the D&D rating here? If I were to give, so like overall plot and storyline, I gave Dungeons and Dramas a 3.5. I think I talked a little bit about this, but I really enjoyed her, what's her name? Riley's relationship with her dad, and just like different things like that. I also liked Riley's storyline and motivation more than I liked what was going on with Quinn's. I just felt like we were a little all over the place and we weren't deep in a lot of what was going on. So that kind of just took away for me from this story. Not that Logan and Quinn weren't cute together. I thought Logan was a sweet character. And like I said, far nerdier in this book than Dungeons and Dramas. We have, like, within the first 2 chapters, I think they mentioned Critcal Role. They mentioned another podcast, D&D podcast, that Quinn's a big fan of. We've got, you know, a lot more actual play in this book of just like their characters and like the storyline that's going on. We've got a lot more of that. They go to like a little convention, they cosplay, they do all of the things. So I would say, yes, if I were to give a rating, like Dungeons and Dragons revolving around nerdiness, I'd probably give this one like a 2.53. Like, there's a good amount, but it's kind of toned down here. We've got a lot of musical theater references in here too, so it's a little bit more mixed. Since all of the characters are really into D&D in this one, I would give this one like a 4.5. It's pretty D&D heavy and pretty campy in a lot of the different things that they're doing. So I would definitely say this one is more focused on Dungeons and Dragons and puts a lot more of like the culture of it into this book. But overall storyline, I just, like I said, it was a little shallow for me, and the storyline about her grandmother really bothered me. As somebody who has a lot of experience working with seniors specifically, I found the storyline with her grandmother odd, because she fell 3-4 times in this book, but this is a woman who's 75, active, still driving, plays like pickleball once a week, and suddenly she's tripping and falling all around her house. And for me, you know, their immediate reaction was like, she needs to downsize, she needs to move into a retirement home, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I would be, if this was me realistically here, I would be wondering what is going on. Because somebody like that suddenly having like a lot of balance issues would be a cause for like, actually, let's go take her to the doctor, because she's pretty independent. She's very independent and she's very active. So there's not really a reason, just because she's old doesn't mean she's gonna fall. So I found that very strange and did not like it. And I think because I have a background in that, it bothered me a lot, and it might have affected the storyline for me, because I was just like, this is not realistic. Like, to have like all of a sudden this very rapid decline in ability to gain balance and like things like that, but then we have a scene where she's playing pickleball. I'm just confused. Now, if she had tripped over something, you know, maybe she got a new cat or dog and it kind of upset things, and she just tripped and damaged something that would have affected her independence and made it harder for her to live on her own because of just like an accident, not old age, then I think I would have understood the storyline more. But that has nothing to do with, well, it did have something to do with, like, I think it, like I said, I do really think it detracted for me from this story, because it was like a central background storyline here, especially of how these two get together and just like more conflict with her family. And so I just felt like if you're gonna make that a central storyline, I wanted that to be a bit more reasonable, and I didn't find it to be very reasonable. She had like a similar kind of like medical thing going on with a family member in this one, and it was a bit more reasonable than this one, in my opinion. So that are these two YAs. I have one more YA left to read, and that's Roll for Initiative. Yes, it's Roll for Initiative, which is an audiobook I picked up. So I will be listening to that one. That one is a queer second chance romance, so I'm interested to listen to it. We shall see. And then physically, I will be reading Roll for Romance, which is my first adult novel that we'll actually be reading in this one. I started like the first like 2 chapters, and I do appreciate that we started like right off the bat with the character already being in the situation we're introduced to. So we shall see how that goes. It's a lot of romance for me. And then I will be finishing up. I have clips. I'm sure there'll be editing. Victoria will insert them in, but we have made our applique. You can see Dungeon Masters. I hope it's like, I feel like it's still very legible. So we're gonna put this on my old AmeriCorps hoodie because, or pullover sweater, because I do actually quite like that pullover. And because it is a vinyl on that, there is no way for me to like do a cover up on it without doing something like an applique. And so since I learned how to do an applique at Granny Camp, I went ahead and used the Cricut to cut out this lovely design. I'll put the Etsy designer I got it from in the comments there. But I will be doing this, and I think I'm gonna try to find a D20, because there's like a patch on this side, so I think I'm gonna try to find like a D20 outline to cut with the Cricut, and make like a smaller applique to go where that is as well. I might do it on both sides or not, I don't know. It'll depend on how I feel, but so we'll cover that up, and then I'll have a nice little D&D sweater that I can wear around, sweatshirt that I can wear around. So I kind of thought it was fun to like do this one while we were doing this video. So I will be catching up on that at some point this week as well. But anywho, I'm gonna let you go. Check in with you once I have more reading updates. Hello, hello, hello. Happy Tuesday. I forget when I last checked in. It might have been Saturday, possibly Sunday, but I am currently about 75% of the way through Roll for Romance, which, if you remember, is the first adult D&D inspired romance novel that we have been reading. And this one is interesting. So we are following Sadie, who is she's let go from her job and ends up going to Texas for the summer to stay with her best friend Liam. And Liam is a big D&D fan, and he decides to do a campaign, including Sadie and some other people that he knows from around town who are new to D&D, including this guy Noah. And Noah is new to town as well, so he is helping his friend Dan with this brewery that they opened up in this small town. So it takes place in Heller, Texas, which is like somewhere outside of Austin. I'm not as familiar with some of the small cities in the Hill Country area, but it's somewhere outside of Austin, which means it's very pretty. Texas Hill Country is very pretty. So I can understand like the idyllic kind of small town vibes that this place is giving, because if you ever go to Texas Hill Country, you'll kind of get it. It's like rolling hills, and during the spring there's really pretty flowers. It's just very hot, especially during the summer. But yeah, so Sadie's kind of in a funk, and so, you know, she joins this D&D group. Her and Noah instantly hit it off, and we are kind of, this is interesting because the author, instead of just kind of describing the sessions that they're having, we actually get like 2 to 3 pages, probably per chapter or like every other chapter, of their actual D&D story. So it's not told through like Sadie's character says this, or Sadie looks at him and then her character says this. Like, we're getting a narrative version of each session for their D&D group, which is an interesting choice. I like it because, you know, it adds a little something extra, and I do think like it kind of ties in with what's going on with our characters and just gives us an idea. I feel like if you're somebody who isn't familiar with D&D, it kind of gives you an idea of what Sadie is experiencing in a way, and like that feeling of being, it's that feeling of being invested in that session. So I do like it from there. I would say this is less D&D semantics, D&D nerdiness, heavy than Dating and Dragons. So, you know, at the end, I will give you my D&D rating and my rating for the book overall. But it's definitely an interesting tactic. I think it works well for people who wouldn't necessarily read this book because it has D&D in it. And I think it can engage you and make you feel what Sadie's feeling, because she does talk a lot about her character, Jaylee, and you know, there's also like flirting going on between her and Noah as their characters in addition to in real life. So it kind of like gives you that dual perspective on it. And again, I do think if you're someone who isn't as familiar with D&D, it's going to give you a little insight into what Sadie is gaining from this campaign, because that is like part of her journey of like doing something creative like D&D, which I can attest to as well, can like open new doors, because like it's a type of thing that you don't necessarily always do with your brain, you know what I mean? That D&D can unlock and help you maybe feel more comfortable going a little out on a limb and being a little bit more creative or trying something new. So I do like that aspect. The one thing I would say about it is I wish that it was broken up better, because it was definitely jarring the first couple times it happened. I was confused because even though they have, like, let me show you. So they have like these little D20s, but those page breaks aren't always for the sessions and for breaking it up. So I think perhaps chapter-wise, it would have been better to maybe make smaller chapters, and when we're going into the session and when we're going into storytelling of the session, to break it up like that, because it is a little jarring. And I thought I saw someone comment about that on the audiobook, and I do think that if they had the chapters broken up that way, it probably wouldn't be as confusing on the audiobook either. So that would be my one critique of that aspect of the story. With Noah and Sadie's romance, I think they're cute. I wouldn't say like I'm super invested in their romance. I think I'm a bit more invested in like Sadie's journey than I am necessarily with her and Noah. And I do think that the conflict that they're building up for, it's short. So like this hasn't been, I will say, for those of you who are really big on spice, this hasn't been super spicy. And I think we are going to be rushing the third act situation, because they I feel like I'm at least 65-70% of the way through the book. So I don't know if there's going to be like a third act breakup kind of thing, but they definitely do have like the conflict of these two characters, which essentially is like Noah's a bit of a nomad, and then Sadie is trying to figure out what her next step is with life. Does she try to get a job back in New York where she was working? Does she try to pursue other things? Like there's a lot of up in the airs, which can make it difficult to commit to a relationship. And that's kind of their central conflict. And why they kind of why it took them so long to kind of get together. And they've literally just decided where I'm at to get together to try it out. So I'll be interested to see how this ends, but I'm definitely liking it, like story-wise more. Like I said, I think I like Sadie's journey. Sadie and I have a lot in common when it comes to like she's still nerdy. She's just not ever done D&D. She did make a comment, which is probably going to get me some flack, about like Captain America being her least favorite Marvel superhero. And I was like, same girl, same. So I felt so vindicated seeing that also there. So I wonder if Lenora also feels the same way, because same girl, same. But she does like fan art and things like that. So it's not like I don't think any of these books we've had somebody who's like totally outside of the nerd culture, like kind of stuff. Even with Dungeons and Drama, I still feel like with musical theater, like that's its own subset, but like it's still very much like there's a whole like, you know, the theater geek community kind of thing. So I feel like it's still adjacent enough that we weren't making leaps. I haven't seen any of these books where the characters aren't like some way connected, where we're getting somebody who's completely not into that kind of stuff and it gets thrown into D&D, which I think is interesting. And it kind of makes sense because it is a leap to get someone to join if they've never like really dipped their toes in anything like that or don't have any interest in things like that. Now, of course, there are a lot of other TT RPGs that I think would be good gateways for people who aren't necessarily interested in fantasy or comics or just like fanfics, that kind of stuff. I do think there are some good ones now that there would be of more interest, like story-wise, to people than just D&D. You know, and I've played some of them and they're great. And I'm looking forward to playing more of them. I enjoy kind of branching out and not necessarily having to follow more of that fantasy style, doing more of a cozy vibes kind of thing. So those are really fun too. But yeah, I think this is pretty cute thus far. I'm enjoying it. All of these covers have really been hitting for me. Like, I love the colors schemes and what they're doing with the dice. Like, it's just such a vibe that I'm thoroughly enjoying just looking at the covers. Like, I want shirts that look like all of them because they're so cute. But I haven't started Roll for Initiative, which was the audiobook that I have. I plan on starting that today. I went and did some shopping because I am looking for stuff like postpartum, because I don't like necessarily fit in a lot of my clothes, and I don't need more maternity clothes. I don't need any of that. But like, I want stuff that's going to be very comfortable and like easy for me when it comes to like being with baby, feeding baby, that kind of stuff. So I did some shopping. I'm gonna try those on. I'm currently participating in Gavin's Patreon sprints and just finished eating. I also would really like to do some Halloween stuff today, but I think before we do that, we might do Halloween tomorrow because we need to finish our applique, our D&D applique, because I want to include that in this video. So we might start Roll for Initiative once I've tried these clothes on and got some laundry going. And then I do have a junior league meeting tonight. So a little bit of a busy time here, but tomorrow I don't have an appointment. So, and I ran errands earlier today, like I said. So doing those kind of things and just chilling out here, waiting for, I guess, the bun in the oven to decide that he's fully baked. So that's what we're doing. Yeah, but once I finish it, I will give you my full thoughts and ratings on that. And then hopefully I'll have an update for Roll for Initiative for you. And then that would leave me, if I could get Roll for Initiative done like between today and tomorrow, that would leave me with Tusk Love. And I'm so stoked to read it. So fingers crossed, because I want to read Tusk Love so bad. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I'm gonna have to wear a Critcal Role shirt when I put it on. Yeah, anyway, I will talk with you later. Bye. Hello. Happy Wednesday. Yes, Wednesday. We are back in the car because we're going to go run a couple of errands. And then I thought I'd go to a coffee shop because they've released their fall beverages and your girl is ready to try some. My lips looking so chapped right now. Please forgive me. But, sorry, you're shaking. I'm going to hold you nice and steady here. But we finished Roll for Romance. There's Roll for Initiative and Roll for Romance, so getting the two confused. So we finished Roll for Romance, and I gave it 4 stars, which kind of surprised myself because I wasn't sure if I was going to do that or not. But I did because I do think in the end, the romance, although it was a romance, I do think it was more about our character Sadie kind of finding her place and what she wants next in life. And so I enjoyed that more than I thought I would. And like I said, I was more invested in that than the romance. Although I did like Noah and I did enjoy their little cutesy romance. And I did like reading how the D&D sessions ended, and I just thought it was an overall fun book. I think the author and I would get along. So if I ever see her at an author event, I'm going to let her know because I feel like we have similar vibes. If Sadie has anything to do with it, because it did say in the back of the book, I believe, that she also hit some serious burnout, and that is how she ended up starting to write this book. So I do feel like she's probably put a little bit of herself in Sadie. So I would be curious to see that because I think we would get along. So for overall rating the book, I'm giving it a 4. For D&D rating, I'm going to give this honestly, I feel like it's a 2. I feel like there were less mechanics in a lot of ways for this book, even less than Dungeons and Drama. And I think that's fine. Like I said, I do think this book would be accessible for somebody who is not into D&D. It's not like heavy into D&D, how the game works, like D&D culture, all that kind of stuff. It's not like super, super into it. So it's more just giving like a splice of what their sessions would look like, but it's not like getting deep into the rules a lot of times. And, you know, building out characters and things like that. And like I said, because it's a narrative of the actual session instead of them playing realistically, it makes it very accessible for a reader who's never experienced playing D&D to kind of feel what Sadie is getting from the game. So I did like that aspect. So interesting. It's definitely like I was saying, like, it's not as campy as Dating in Dungeons or even Dating and Drama. Like, I feel like those two were both a lot more campy when it came to the D&D stuff, and I feel like Roll for Romance is not. So, and I feel like it's a more accurate depiction of like what a typical D&D group might be like for a group of friends, especially adults. So I do think you get that little splice of like them getting ready for the game and different things like that. So very fun. Would recommend. And now I'm going to go run some errands and possibly start Tusk Love at the coffee shop. I have it with me. So I will check in with you in a little bit. welcome to my floor. I'm giving Pumpkin some pets at the moment, but I thought I'd give you a little update here. So we are home, took a little break when we got back. I was feeling a little tired. I was gonna try to go to our newly opened library. Apologies if you can hear Pumpkin crunching away at her food. Don't let me interrupt you. Go ahead. So was gonna go to the newly opened, like they didn't renovate the library. They actually moved the locations to a plaza that's closer to where I live, and it desperately, right, Pumpkins? Desperately needed an upgrade. So they did open it, and I haven't been yet, just because I haven't checked out anything from my local library in a while, because my local library is not, does not have the biggest selection, and I think it's in part due to the county that I live in. If you know, you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, our selection is kind of small. I just don't find much in our library, like physically. So I use Libby a lot more than I use like my physical library now. Whereas opposed when we were in Dallas, we had a pretty good library and they had a lot of new stuff in the, like a lot of new physical stuff. Man, my skin is looking a little rough today. We're looking a little rough now. That's how I feel, a little rough. So my stomach has been upset like all day, and I don't know, my Lizzie Bennett hair pieces aren't functioning for me correctly. But so I did not end up starting to read Tusk Love, which is my physical book. But I did finally start listening to Roll for Love, not Roll for Initiative. I don't know why I thought it was called that. So there's Roll for Romance, which we finished. We're listening to Roll for Love. I took a break, so I listened to about, like, let me look. Oh, wow. No. That's not right. Yeah, so I'm a little over halfway through. Because as you saw, I do listen to audiobooks typically at like about 2.75 speed. Unless I'm having a really hard time following it. So generally with a romance novel, that's not going to be too difficult. We're not trying to keep like a bunch of characters and like fantasy stuff in check. But I typically listen pretty fast for my audiobooks. So yeah, we're over 50% of the way through the book, and I'm not really liking this one all too much. It's gotten a little better, but I really felt like the introduction, and this is probably because, I mean, this is YA too. So I was going into it with low expectations, just like the other two, because YA just really isn't something that I read much anymore. But because this is like a second chance in a way, we kind of skipped over a lot of the like building up of this friendship relationship and like went straight into like, oh my gosh, my crush is back, and oh, I feel a type of way kind of thing, to where she is like introduced to these friends real fast. They start playing D&D real fast. Like, we did not establish a lot of relationships here when the book started, so I feel like it kind of put me at a disadvantage because I didn't get the chance to like feel for the characters before we just started like digging right into it. And for a romance, like, you kind of need to connect to the characters in order to root for them. In this situation, you know, it's not like a lot of plot. We do have we do have conflicts for our main characters. So Harper just moved back. Well, she didn't move back. She moved to this small town where her grandparents lived after her grandfather passes away. Her and her mom have been a little distant since her grandfather passed, and she moved from Portland. And she is a lesbian. She was out. She's 17, and she's trying to like figure out what she wants to do. She's also hasn't really had the chance to grieve her grandparents, and from what we understand, like she used to spend the summers there with her grandparents up until 5 years ago when her parents got divorced, and she never went back. Her and her mom never took her back, and so she didn't get to spend those final years with her grandparents, and so she's mourning that time she didn't have, and she's also just mourning their passing. And so she's having a hard time with that, but she also doesn't really want to go to college. She wants to do a trade. Her grandfather seemed to have been like a handyman. They lived on a farm. I guess she learned to do that, and she kind of wants to do that. So that's like Harper's kind of conflict here. She also is looking for a D&D group, and Ollie, who is our other main character, grew up with Harper like in the summer. They were like summer best friends, and from what we gather from Ollie, she realized before Harper stopped coming that she's bisexual because she had feelings for Harper, and quickly those feelings like reignite as soon as they see each other, but she's still not out. Mostly, she's only out to like her close friend group, who's this D&D friend group, and then with the friend group, they readily take Harper in as like 2 seconds, and they're like, yeah, so excited, D&D, we're all BFFs now, which I guess like with teens, I suppose that happens. I don't know. I don't remember. But like, I mean, they could become very, very fast friends. I thought it was like, we really didn't get a lot of time between like they met and they're like, yeah, let's play D&D, and now we're BFFs. Everything's great. And really Ollie is struggling with how she can live her life true to herself and also do the things she wants to do, because she wants to stay in this town. She's like, she doesn't want to leave, and so she's having that conflict and then not knowing how her and Harper stand. So that is kind of like the internal conflicts for these two characters. And it is dual POV, but I felt like because they were such close childhood friends growing up, the thought was like, this is going to be smooth and easy. Like, they're not going to have any she didn't have any resentment towards Harper. She like, it's more just like instantly we're pining for each other, but like we as an audience didn't really get to experience their relationship, and we're still not quite getting to. We get like bits and pieces, and Harper's trying to like help Ollie feel more comfortable with her sexuality, and then Ollie's trying to help Harper feel more comfortable with her decisions for the future and kind of stuff like that. And then we have another friend who is not out and like at all, and who they think is gay, but he's not said anything, so they're, you know, respecting his choices and things like that. But it seems like their other friend is into him, so like there is all that going on. I'm honestly like, it's just a lot of, it was like a lot of info dumping very early on. And then for the actual D&D part, it's kind of similar to Roll for Romance, where I do like that they actually broke up the sessions. So when you're listening to the audiobook, like, you know that you're going into a session. I think that was smart. Like I said, I would have liked that for Roll for Romance. I think that would have made it easier to pick up on. But they have like a separate narrator who is narrating that part, which is interesting. And then I would say it's very campy. Like, this is going neck and neck for most like D&D camp of these books. with like Datings and Dragons. It's like those two right now are definitely the most heavily influenced, not only by the game, but by like the game's culture, by like the Dungeons and Dragons culture. Those two books are. And I can't decide which one yet I think is the most influenced by Dungeons and Dragons. But yeah, these two definitely lean very, very heavily into D&D culture, into like a lot of things that people who enjoy D&D get into, you know, talking more about, like they even give like the character stats as they introduce characters, like, or they have like a moment in the role-playing session, in the session, and they'll even do just like stats at the end of this, which like if you don't know anything about D&D is not, you're gonna be like, okay, cool, great, thanks for letting me know. So yeah, it leans very heavily into that, I will say. Yeah, so I'm a little sad about this because, you know, this is the only sapphic romance that I have on this list. So I'm a little sad that right now it's probably my least favorite. But again, I think it's really suffering from the second chance romance trope kind of thing. But it's not really second chance because they didn't date in the first place, but they had crushes on each other. But I just think the author missed a little bit. Like we could have slowed down just a little bit to establish them a little bit more, and reacquaint themselves, because 5 years is a big difference when they're 17 now, so they would have been 12. Like, that's a big time. That is a very crucial 5 years of a young adult's life, to not have been a part of each other's lives and not have talked to each other until I just kind of fall right back into it is interesting. And I think it's missing, you know, I know we don't want to like you don't always want conflict, but I feel like there would be conflict there. I feel like there would be legitimate like time that would need to be taken. I don't know. It's just like, how do I as a reader connect with these characters when I haven't really had much time to sit with them? And then I'm already halfway through the book here. And on top of that, we do have the session going on. So like, I'm halfway through the book, and you have to think like probably a third of the book is the session story, is their D&D sessions like storyline. So I'm not even getting like the full time in the book spent with them as characters. So I feel like with that, it makes it even harder because it's really short amount of time with them. And yeah, so I don't know. I don't know about this one. It may be my least favorite of the YA just because of that, so we will see. But we still have another half, so it could improve. But I'm going to continue taking a little break. I'm going to work on finishing my applique and watch some YouTube videos because I'm just a little tired of the audiobook right now. So I will let you know when we actually like get it done. Bye, Mom. Hello.
So excited when I realized that there was going to be like a freaky mannequin thing, and I mean, as expected, there were so hard to describe the name of this mannequin, but I thought it was so creepy. This character's like going to sleep, and the mannequin's like in the room with him, and he thinks that he can like.
Okay, hello. It's been a couple days, but we have made more progress on this vlog. So. Right, pumpkins? First off, if you would have seen, I made a pivot to our D&D sweatshirt And the pivot was a bad pivot. Let me grab it for you. So we still have our applique, which we're going to put on a different sweater or shirt, but it was too large to cover where the original patch was here. So I decided to just do one over the patch, like just take the iron-on press. But yeah, as you can see, because these are dark colors, it bleeds through the white. So I'm gonna have to get some fabric paint to fix it, but I think it'll be fine. It'll add a little bit of whimsy, a little bit of character to it. So we're not done with that. We're not done as of yet. We shall see. But beyond that, we finished Roll for Love, which I kept calling Roll for Initiative, which is not the name of the book, in fact. So it's Roll for Love. And I ended up giving it a 3. And honestly, considering how I was feeling about it when I first started it, it improved as the book went along. But I still stand by my original comment. Yeah, so I stand by that, but it was still super cute. But solid 3 for me. It did improve near the end. D&D wise, I would give it maybe like a 4 on the D&D camp scale, maybe a 4.5. It really is like going toe to toe with Datings and Dungeons, because I felt like we were very deep in that as well. Maybe less. Maybe I hop Datings and Dungeons to 4.5 and Roll for Love to like a 4. Somewhere like that. So I will have a ranking here of the most D&D to the least D&D, and then what I liked the most to what I didn't like the most here. So you can decide depending on what you're looking for in these kind of books. Now currently I am finishing this vlog up. So we're going furthest beyond. I don't have the, I'm like gonna hold this up, but I actually took the dust jacket off. So I've got my Amina Al-Sarafi inspired book cover on Tusk Love right now. But I am like 20% into Tusk Love right now. And again, I think we might have talked about this when I first introduced the books, but Tusk Love is a romance fantasy. It's definitely romance in a fantasy world, not necessarily like a fantasy plot thus far. And it is based off of a inside game joke from season 2 of Critcal Role. So definitely like very meta D&D, but this is actually in the world. So there is no mention of the game Dungeons and Dragons, of mechanics, of people playing the game. That is not existent in this. This is in the world of Exandria, which was built by the game master for Critcal Role's first 3 seasons, and has been where all of their games have taken place for the most part. Up until this year, because they're about to start their new campaign and they're changing that up. But Exandria is Matt's world, and this book is based off of a joke in game for one of the characters named Jester, who they end up at a bookshop, and then like she convinces this bookshop owner to give her this romance novel. And so she like refers to this romance novel a ton of times. A lot of it has to do with the fact that our male lead character in Tusk Love is a half-orc, and Jester, who again is a playable character in season 2 of Critcal Role, played by Laura Bailey, has a crush on Ford, who is played by her husband, Travis Willingham, and his character is a half-orc in season 2 of Critical Role. So like, it's very meta there, so it's gonna be hard to rate this on like D&D scale. I think like for an inside live play joke, it probably is a 5, because like that's intense to have to explain where this story originally came from. But it is a self-contained story. You don't have to have any idea about any of that to read Tusk Love. What I will tell you is the book is not taking itself too seriously. I haven't seen a lot of people talk about it. I've seen people talk about wanting to read it, but I haven't seen a lot of people talk about their thoughts on it yet. So I don't have anybody else's thoughts to pull in to see if somebody who isn't aware really of the background of the story, if they find the kind of tongue-in-cheek humor that they're throwing in there for this being a romance novel, if they're finding that endearing or if they're finding it annoying. Don't know. But I think it's funny. Obviously, I came in knowing what this was supposed to be, but I will check in with you either once we fix this sweatshirt or I finish Tusk Love. And then we'll wrap up this vlog, which is great. So, let's do that. Oh. Hello. I'm back. In our rocking chair here. As, you know, it is Thursday. Trying to finish things up. Haven't had a chance to update anything since yesterday, since I filmed the intro to this video. And put some clips together, but have not finished any of that. So we shall see if I can manage to do it before tomorrow to post. We'll see. But I did realize that when I was looking through my clips, I never wrapped up Tusk Love, even though I did finish it, and I finished it in September. It is now October while I'm filming this. And so I did finish it. And I gave it a 3.75. I had to go back and look because girl could not remember. So I gave it a 3.75. As I mentioned, it remained pretty campy. I had a good time. I thought it was silly. I thought that the characters were, it was like a grumpy sunshine. We had a mystery of this chest that Guinevere was taking. Like, the kind of like inciting incident is she is on her way to a place called the Menagerie Coast, which if you watch Critical Role will be familiar. If not, it's a coastal city where her parents are at currently. And you find out, I don't know if this says this in the synopsis. I think it does. But you find out that she's engaged, and so she's taking this like trunk to the Menagerie Coast. Yeah, so it's her dowry, but she doesn't know what's in it because her dad always had the key. And so it is like this mystery that's kind of going on throughout the whole thing. And then I did like how the author incorporated, you know, a lot of the world of Critical Role in a way of Exandria. So it was interesting to see her thread that world in there and make it accessible. Like, I felt like it wasn't too much world building dumping of world building, too much exposition. I felt like just like enough sprinkled in here to give us the vibes, to give you an idea of the kind of world that they're in. So I think she did a good job of that. But yeah, it was an overall fun time. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, if I would just like to say that wasn't me. It was a good time. I enjoyed it. So I would still recommend. And I am excited to get the book signed when I go to the Anime Frontier Convention in December and get to see the Critical Role cast, or at least the majority of them. So I'm excited to get the book signed when I go, because that will be so much fun. But yeah, that is a wrap on Tusk Love, and also a wrap on this vlog. I am going to put the ratings up here around me to review the books and what I gave them. So I don't remember them offhand. Like I said, I'm kind of wrapping this by the seat of my pants. But I had a really good time with this video. It was very fun. I enjoyed having some D&D in my life because I haven't been able to play in a while. So it was fun to get to live vicariously through a lot of the characters in these romance novels that were playing D&D. It just made me miss it even more. So if you've read any of these books, or if you have any recommendations for something like this, let me know. If I had to pick my favorite one, I do think it would be Roll for Romance. And I think the next one of these videos I'm going to do is actually romances with Renaissance Fair themes. There's an author who does like a bunch of them. So I'm going to read them because the Texas Renaissance Festival is back, and we do plan on going with our little nugget at some point. And it is the largest Renaissance festival in the country. There's actually a short like documentary kind of thing that you can watch on HBO about it. I'll link it down below. I'll probably talk about more about that in that vlog, but I do think I want to do that. But yeah, I really am looking forward to doing that video as well, and I had so much fun with this one, and I'm thinking of incorporating D&D into a TBR somehow, so stay tuned for that, of like how to pick my TBR at some point, so we shall see. But thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I hope you read a good book. I hope you find some joy, and most importantly, I hope you do something to make the world a better place, and I will see you in my next one.